And welcome to the show because you are now tuned into a brand spanking new Monday Night Live. That's right. AKA the Hangout Stream, AKA the Chill Stream, baby. All fired up. We're ready to have some fun for June 12th, 2023. Can you believe it? And this show is brought to you by yours truly, the man broadcasting from behind the curtain. You know who I am. Come on. Because if you don't know by now, you can visit www.livefreeliverich.com or simply Google this name and you can find out. How you folks doing? Did you have a week? You can tell me all about it in the comments down below if you feel so inclined. Let me fill you in on what I have lined up for tonight. Tonight is going to be a fun-filled episode, I have to say. For those of you who may be wondering why you're tagged in this video, it's because a Booktube, there's a Booktube tag video to participate in. So if you're watching this on the replay, then feel free to skip to the timestamp, or else you can just kick back and enjoy the show, because I got some fantastic audiobook news to share. I also have something lined up for reading time that revolves around, quote, love, not sex, end quote. But I also have a hot topic to discuss. So, of course, there's always a chance things may get a little spicy, I have to say. But before I get into all that, first things first, I like to take this time and slide inside my first segment of the night, where I like to shine a spotlight on some books. That's right. That are currently available or coming soon to an online store near you. Yes, it's true. So first up tonight, let's see what we have. First up, from the Twitters. This comes from Thomas Grant Bruso. It's actually had a book mentioned just last week, during last week's show. Back again this week with his book, Eye of the Beholder by Thomas Grant Bruso. Let's check it out. All right. There's the cover. Pretty snazzy looking cover. I like that crystal ball on there. It's got that smoky effects going on. Let's check out the blurb, shall we? In the middle of a psychic session with Madame Petrie, David hears a ghostly voice calling his name. But he is not sure if it's the elderly fortune teller exaggerating the reading or bizarre grumblings coming from a mysterious old man in a painting hanging in the psychic's foyer. When Madame Petrie disappears in a ball of flames, David rushes home, terrified. From that moment on, David and his policeman boyfriend, Zane, find themselves trying to solve the series of murders and mayhem that begin to haunt David. As we have 161 pages of LGBTQ plus fantasy fiction. It's actually funny with these categories on here. I will say right now that these whole like Amazon categories right here, that kind of sparked. I kind of made mention of it last week during last week's show. Kind of went on a little bit of a tangent about it, but I will say that it has inspired a new hot topic subject. So stay tuned for that later on. But the book sounds interesting. Sounds like we got a little fortune telling, some magic going on. So thank you for sharing that with me. Next up, we have from Steve Anc, an author, a poet as well. It says, quote, "The Voice." This as well. This is as well a beautiful piece of poetry that should be written on a billboard. It consequently passes on a message of unadulterated truth, end quote. Something that's coming from someone who has read some of his work. And this is, "I wrote this for you. Just a line will heal the heart," by Steve Anc. All right, quite a long blurb on this one. Actually, the second part looks like it's reviews. Not too long. We have "I Wrote This for You" is a book chocked full of poems that shows the basics of love, nature, beauty, and peace in metaphoric form. From all the poetic devices to the basic flow of poems, this book has it all. The book overall is very inspiring, and it encourages the reader to read through the poet's eyes. It has poems from classic tunes to modern styles with lots of great poems that give an example about the title of the book in a real sense, because the author had you in mind. Each figurative device in "I Wrote This for You" teach others more deeply about the different phases of life and how to respond to life in general from the heart of peace, love, and resilience, because just a line will heal the heart. What stood out about the book was how the poet Steve Anc waved each poem with his metaphoric fist and amazing style, with an almost obsessive amount of rhyming. He's a poet and he knew it. He knew it. 77 pages of African poetry, 2-hour literature and fiction short reads. All right, one more book here tonight. But before we get to that, I have a guest here with me that I would like to introduce. So without further ado, when she's not out and about releasing arrows while riding horseback across the homestead, she spends her time crafting fantastical tales to stimulate the imagination. That's right. It's my pleasure to welcome Rachel Morley to Monday Night Live. Hey, Rachel. How are you?
Hi, Jonathan. How you doing?
Not too shabby, not too crabby. I'm glad you asked. That wasn't set up. That was completely So, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes. Is this your first rodeo?
It is not, and I've kind of been dreading using StreamYards because we have a history of StreamYards not liking me doing interviews.
Really?
So yeah, so I'm glad that it's working. Glad everything is smooth so far because it's usually something on my end.
StreamYard is playing nice. So far, I have to say, I haven't had, I've actually only had one hiccup the whole time. Been doing this for over a year now. I've only had one hiccup so far in the middle of a stream where I got booted, and but the stream kept going, so all I had to do was log back in. But we have someone here. Say hello. Hello, Herman. Welcome to the show. Herman, we're going to give him one of these real quick, just because we should. He says yo. He's always stops in to say yo. So I drop him the air horn. Welcome. So we're here today. We're going to be talking about your series. This is the Lirical series. That's what I know about it so far. And this is actually your second book in the series, and this one is entitled Redwater Dreams.
Yep.
So if you'd like to maybe just introduce us, maybe say a little bit about the series, maybe if you don't want to get into maybe the specifics of it as I kind of pull up the cover here.
Yeah, so Redwater Dreams is the continuation of where we left off in my debut novel, Let There Be Fire. And the premise is relatively simple in that these two mildly sympathetic assholes kind of just team up for revenge, and it gets very complicated very quickly and turns into a rescue mission. And where we leave off in Let There Be Fire, they haven't quite completed the rescue, and it's culminating here in Redwater Dreams to try and just get that piece that they've been fighting for so long. But with the third book coming out,
what I remember from the first one is the opening line of the blurb where it was like revenge, rescue, and then it's redemption, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. So these are the kind of like you put the themes like right up front and bold right out the gates.
I mean, it's weird that you say that because I was just trying to think of like, what are the goals? I didn't think of them quite as themes.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, goal number 1, revenge. Goal number 2, things got complicated, rescue. Goal number 3, should probably fix some shit.
All right. So he's got goals in mind.
As beta readers were coming back to me with the first book, they were telling me about how they enjoyed all these themes, and I didn't deliberately write any themes. So I was just like, yeah, 100% nailed it. God, just pretend like I know what I'm doing.
So, okay. So it was more like a goal type of deal. So has to do with more tied into the plot specifically. So did you start with the plot, or did you have some characters in mind?
I typically start with characters because I'm really shit with plot. Like, don't tell anyone that I'm actually a fraud. But the one thing I'm good at with storytelling is making characters feel human. That's sort of like the one thing I'm very proud of, is that this is the thing I can do. So I start off in mind with Cal as my character, and I really didn't know what to do with him because he had started off as just a character for a one-shot D&D.
Okay.
And that's kind of where the inspiration for Let There Be Fire came from, is we sort of pseudo started where that campaign was, but it had been about 2 years since that one game. So there was a lot of gaps in my memory, and I was just like, I could just fill this in, and it'll be a short story. And then, 20,000 words later, it wasn't a short story. And I got attached to the characters. And I was like, no. We're just going to kind of keep going and just kind of keep pushing forward with new things. And we're here now with the third book coming out.
Is there any kind of sub genre to this? Is this a fantasy romance, or is this or is this just kind of like, or is this high fantasy, or is this kind of more of like
I would say that it's more of a fantasy adventure at first, because they are going on their quest and they're traveling as they're plotting and tracking and trying to get to their goals. After book 3, it's still a fantasy adventure, but we go into deliberately darker subject matter there. It's not a big spoiler to say it, that after book 3, there's dealing with, the aftermath of the quest. So you're dealing with your PTSD, you're dealing with grief, you're dealing with trying to pick yourself back up again. And I think that's something very important that we often kind of forget is, the soldier that comes home, sometimes they just didn't leave the battle. And trying to see how these characters kind of pick themselves up. And then,
would you say that that's a big part of your storytelling is the characterization, like putting the characters in these situations and just like kind of illustrating how they, in other words, as I say, is it plot driven? Is it character driven? Now, I believe that something can be character driven. A story can be character driven, or a story can be plot driven. But of course, every story should have some sort of plot. Plot really just being a series of events. It could be linked to a character goal, however it may be, but there is some sort of structure involved. But when you say that you're start with the characters, would you say that is kind of what this story is more of like a character driven type of narrative?
Absolutely. It's absolutely very focused on the character first, and the goal is going to take as long as it's going to take. For me, what was important was making sure that the characters, how they respond to something, how they will go about and plan to move forward, and how they react and how they behave and how they interact, that felt very genuine. That's like the one thing that I can really pride myself on, is just making them feel like this would be a person you would know, or you've seen this person, or maybe you are this person, that you're dealing with these inadequacies or this frustration. So to me, that's always been the most important. Like, we're going to get the plot and we're going to get to the goal, but it's the journey.
I feel like it's almost like when it's like very character focused, it's almost as if I would say more so definitely with the fantasy genre, especially if it's a series and it's spanning multiple books. It's almost like writing with the idea in mind that the reader will be building a relationship with these characters, basically. Exactly. Is kind of what I gather from that. Whereas it's not so much, well, I don't know. I mean, what about this series? So this is going to go on from more, you have a third book on the way.
Yeah. And I'm taking a short break from the fourth book in the series. But I had originally planned that this was going to just be one book. Okay, a really long book, 2 books tops. So we have 3 books out now. And it might be 7 to 9 books based on what I want to have happen. Wow. Because it started off with the very simple premise, and then it got bigger, and it's like, well, what if then after? And then what if after? And what if after? So we are going to have this culmination of, they're going to kind of go through that hero's journey, kind of deal with the consequences, build up to their peak, have that fallen hero moment, and trying to build back up to the actual climactic end. So, like, I know what it's going to be. I have like an entire wall just over there of just post-it notes to try and keep me on track.
Right. That's what I was going to ask next is like, how can you keep, track of all the different threads that may, that pop up? It must be a whole process, keeping the notes. Do you do a lot of, is there a lot of plotting that goes involved?
There's not a lot. Like, I have a wall, like it's about like this big of a wall and like as tall as I am, of post-it notes that are color-coded. However, they're subject to change or maybe not be at all in there. There's a couple of post notes in there that we've gone past with book 4, and I thought they were going to be pivotal moments, but as I'm just like letting the story unfold and just be very natural with how the characters would respond, those points I thought were going to be very important, no, they're not important at all. And like for me, it's getting to like these main milestones that are going to lead to these next events and having this subtle tone of like something's not quite right, just always present.
Okay. Is there now, as far as the plot itself, would it be a spoiler to kind of ask you like what you would say would be kind of the kind of the inciting incident that kind of kicked off this whole this story? Is it just one character's POV, or is there multiple POVs in this?
It's one character POV, and I was actually going to not use Cal as our point of view because it's more or less that he's not really the main character for the quest. It's Avi's quest, and Cal is there sort of like as a loaded gun. But his perspective was a lot more fun. Whereas Avi was a character that was very dark and very kind of closed off. And I'm like, that's not very fun for me to write. And I can't imagine that's very fun for someone to read. So having Cal, who's when we first meet him, he's not a very serious person. He's just like, things will work itself out. And he's just very impulsive. Over time, we see that he has to like reel himself in and he has to like be more aware of things. So he does go through a lot of growth over the books. But the inciting incident is right away. Like, it's not even a spoiler. If you look at the free sample anywhere on the ebook, that first page is the inciting incident. We're right off the bat, we're getting into, okay, asshole number 1, asshole number 2. There's worse things out there, but maybe if they team up, they can fix some of it.
So we're kind of plunged right into to a chaotic kind of event right out the gates.
Yeah.
I want to see. I'll just read for those watching. This is the blurb from book number 2. So it says, "Revenge is done. Rescue is underway." So it's a race against time where the outcome is either victory or death. So a race against time as gods continue their games of fate and favor. Cal soon discovers he's not the only pawn in their schemes. So it's almost like, this is a pretty big, this seems epic in scope. If we're talking about gods here, and they're kind of like, with the puppets on strings. Let's see. With some more willing than others. No one is what they seem. Enemies in lieu of friends. Now, how do you pronounce this? The Eurebians?
I pronounce it Eurebians.
That sounds more exotic. Eurebians. the Eurebians in the south. The demigods, unbound from their prisons, and small help found only in the most desperate places of Myrnig. Is that how you pronounce that?
Pronounce it whatever way you want.
Cal's fervent resistance. I know sometimes with fantasy, especially with names and stuff, it can get pretty fancified, I have to say. And
I do
for me,
cheat a
it's
lot
like,
though, in that if there's any name that seems complicated, it's usually just a real word, and you can have Google tell you how it's said.
I appreciate that
Or
the
I'll
main
just
character's name is Cal. I do. I have to say, I do appreciate that. Once you get into these multiple syllables on the names, it's like, can they just be Bob or Frank? Look, I understand
I
that.
try to make, if it's a character, try and make the name very simple. If it's a place, I'll let it be more exotic. And like I said, it's usually like a real world word. So Google will tell you how it's said, allegedly. Or it'll be something very simple, and I'll just add an accent just to be a dick.
I'm only partially kidding around, partially serious. I mean, but yes, I do appreciate because it can be difficult to kind of keep track as well as who's who, especially when you start getting up there and you got roster sheets for characters, because fantasy could have, 20, 30 characters rocking, and they're all got their own POVs and storyline threads. So we have, where was I? Okay, so Cal's fervent resistance wavers as desperation takes hold. Stranded at sea, their team divided, and Abby's rescue stolen. Their futures are entangled in a web of chaos and divine intention. Hearts will break as Cal faces choices and is forced to take action that no amount of time could ever prepare him for. But can he do it? So sounds to me, first impressions, it sounds like in book 2, Cal is, it's kind of like a test. This middle book is like the ultimate, it's basically going to be like a big shit test for Cal, if you will.
Yeah,
see if he's willing to walk the walk, or if he's nothing but all talk.
Yeah. With book 2, it's very focused on trying to just break him and just see how well his resilience is. Like, because in book 1, he made the pledge that he's going to see this through. Like, it's not a spoiler. Like, that's the inciting incident. It's like right away that, shit went down. I'm going to help you see this through.
So what is it? What is the that he's seeing through?
He pledged to Avi on their meeting that after hearing Avi's story about how his family was taken from him and that he's been trying to take this guy down and get closure.
And that's asshole. Is that is Avi the other asshole? Are you saying Cal and Avi are the
other
assholes?
Asshole.
Okay, all right. So
I made them very simple with Cal and Avi, just 3-letter names.
Maybe we're dealing with some anti-heroes here. I don't know. That's what I get.
I mean, I don't see them as heroic. I don't see them as anti-heroes. They're just a couple of jerks on a personal mission, really.
Okay.
Like, if they do good along the way, great, but
they're not out here trying to, save the damsels in distress. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, that was one thing in my beta reader feedback is there were a couple people that are very appreciative that the rescue does not involve a girl. It doesn't involve a love interest. So it was a nice, refreshing twist for them, which I didn't think anything of it, because I was like, well, naturally, this would be how things go if I want to just make it stupidly complicated. So it felt like that was the way to go, and I didn't think anything of it. So, yeah.
So bros, a little bit of brotherly love, if you will, in this adventure, perhaps. Two assholes coming together.
I'm a sucker for a fellowship of a romance any day.
All right. So, okay. So kind of a fellowship.
I'm just now realizing where you're going with this.
What? Right.
Yeah.
No. Hey, two guys, they're working together. They're two bros.
Like, I'm not
They got
good
a
at writing
mission.
romance, I say as I took a break and wrote 120,000 words of a romance.
Oh, did you?
No, it's brought up because Cal is bisexual. So
he goes on both sides of the fence on that one.
I'm sorry.
He's plays for both teams. Cal.
He does swing both ways. But to very specific taste, that he enjoys handsome women and very pretty feminine men. Like he's got his priority of like what he's attracted to. So it's not just like anything that moves. It's like you could be a very hot chick walking by and he's like, yeah. But if you're like, an Olympic, shot putter, he's like
K-pop.
Yes,
He would be would he be a K-pop fan?
He would absolutely be a K-pop boy fan, I think. The K-pop girls probably not, but K-pop boys, he'd be super into it. Like that's his whole thing is like if you're going to like, women's Olympics, he's there. If it's like K-pop boys, he's there. But our usual standards is not for him.
So meets this guy, Abby. There's something happens with Abby's family. And that's what kind of like, why does he care though? Why does Cal care?
Cal actually does make that as a point, is that he looks at Avi and he sees a reflection of the man he called his father. Because Cal does not have a biological family. I mean, he does. He had to come from somewhere. But he was raised in an adopted family. He was raised in a very loving family. And it was sort of me just being very spiteful when I decided that was his path. Was, everyone needs a call to action on why are you going on a journey? And his call to action was, well, he's a sailor by trade, so he just has adventure naturally in him. Okay. Where did he get this? No. I'm sorry?
A seaman, if you will. Well, that's okay. No.
Yeah. But then I had to think, okay, well, why is he a sailor? Well, what if his dad was a sailor? Okay. But being a dark elf, you don't have a lot of those. Okay, well, what if he wasn't raised by dark elves? And what if he's sort of kind of persnickety and sort of like, thumbs up on that? So he would have grown up sort of hearing these secondhand stories about like what these other people that he could have been with are like versus where he is now. And he has a very strong love for his family. It's referenced several times in every book in every book so far, he is with at least one family member that he meets along the way, or he'll reference them. He'll reference, well, my nephew wrote, this, most recent textbook, and that's how I know this thing about whatever the fuck we're fighting. Or he'll find out, like, he's in a death pit, and lo and behold, there's a lineup of people who are unwilling contestants in this death pit, and he finds like, oh, my niece is here. Like, how did you get here? Fancy meeting you. And he's someone who is he looks up a lot to the man who adopted him. That's his father figure. That's his role model. He's not doing a very good job emulating his dad, but but it's because Avi reminds him so much of this person who brought him into a home and into a family that he feels like this is how I'm going to give back to my late dad, is I'm going to help this guy. Okay.
Actually, see, that doesn't sound very much like an asshole type of move. That sounds pretty endearing.
That's brought up once in a while. Is like, sometimes almost I forget selfless. You could be a decent person.
Yeah. So there's a lot to find out about this Cal guy. What makes him tick.
Yeah. I don't like making simple characters.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you got to stretch it 7 books, I mean, we can't have it all front loaded, right? We got to leave some things we found out later on. Well, that is Redwater Dreams. You said you had a third. Is the third book already out, or is it pre-order?
The third book is coming out, Spirit of Chaos, and it'll be out 4th of July.
All right, Spirit of Chaos, book number 3 in the Lyrical series. I like those covers, by the way.
Yeah,
You have a cover
the woman
artist for that?
the girl who did the cover did a fantastic job. And just so we're clear, it was not what I had in mind. It is so much cooler than what I had in mind.
Really? So you gave her a
Jubilina
little
did such
artistic
an amazing
license.
job. I'm sorry?
You gave her a little artistic license to kind of just imagine it.
I tend to, because there's something that someone had told me, and it's in regards to what made Pirates of the Caribbean great. There's a point to this, just follow.
Yeah.
Is with the character of Jack Sparrow, a very, very iconic character. What the producer had in mind for this character versus what the director had in mind were incredibly different. And Johnny Depp showed up saying neither. And they just went with it because it was a much better idea. So that was my mindset, is I kind of pitched what I wanted a little bit to her. And we kind of like finagled it a little bit. But what she came up with was so much cooler. I was like, yes, that's not what I had in my head, but that is so much cooler. And that's just what we're going to pretend was there all along.
I think that's what I do too. What I would do too. Like I want to, I have some ideas for some future projects, and I would really like to kind of hook up with an artist out there that could do some illustrations. And, you know, and see if maybe I could do like a thing where I could do, whether it be paintings, but I think I would probably lean more towards black and white, and maybe sketching or something like that. But it would be cool. I think it would be cool if I could get like the originals, you know what I mean? Like if I could get like original sketches, but also have the actual originals, especially with all this AI crap that's going around now too. It'd be like, hey guys, no, I got an artist. They put a lot of work into this, and I have the originals as far as that goes, which I'm assuming
Jubilina has been such a wonderful person to work with in terms of trying to get my covers done, getting character art done. Like I'm just fiercely loyal to just having an artist, because she has been so patient with me. Anytime I'm like, well, I'm not really happy with this. Can we try it this way? She absolutely. And I'm always trying to, like, you know, brace myself for what that cost is going to be. It's never as high as I'm thinking in my head. So just absolutely fantastic human. Had like AI can smack it.
I like how you say exactly fantastic human. Keyword there. Having because it's a process for me. The creative process is the biggest thing. It's the most enjoyable aspect for when it comes to being creative and using your imagination. It's all about the process, all about the journey for me. For some people, it's the product, but for me, it's the process. I really enjoy the process to the point where it's like when I start creating something, it's almost like I want to drag out the process. I'm like, well, I'm not quite done with it yet. I want to tweak it a little bit here and there, when really, you know, it could have been done, you know, a few weeks ago or something like that, you know?
Yeah, that's been me. What started off with a short story is now 7, maybe 9 books.
and working with other people too, in the sense that, like you're saying, you have this back and forth, and I feel like that's all a part of the process as well, because you're connecting with another human being, and you're kind of getting a look inside of their mind, and you're learning about somebody else too, like how not only how their creative process is, but how their mind works, the way that they see something that is ultimately your creation, right? It's your book, it's your creation. But at the same time, when you're giving the artist, I feel like, because the same thing is in tattoo culture too, because I was raised, you know, in the tattoo kind of culture, if you will, even though I myself do not have any tattoos, but I know quite a bit about it, in the sense that, you know, you could go in there into a shop and you say, you know, you could pick out some flash art on the wall and say, hey, I want that. Or, you know, some people could say, oh, well, I want to have my own original tattoo, right? But usually what would be like etiquette, I guess, if you want to call it that, or good practice, is really to give the artist room to breathe. You're hiring the artist for their skills. If you are approaching an artist, it's because you already believe in what it is that they do. You believe in their abilities to deliver. So That's what I feel like. If I get into where I'm going to be hiring some artists, that's someone that I think it would be fun to connect with someone and just kind of see what they come up with for an IP that I own. You know what I mean? See it from somebody else's perspective is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think probably the giddiest thing with working with an artist, with Jubilina, something that I didn't think about at all, but she had drawn the letters for the titles by hand. And I was like, oh, if you can get it to like kind of look like this or kind of look like that. And she's like, you don't understand. No one ever asked me to do art with words. And I went to school to learn how to do art with words. So every title is not like a font that you'll find in like a Word document. It's just something that she did by hand based on the prompt that I had given her.
I can see that.
Can we have it look like it's burning away? Can we have it look like it's stomped out or like it's like turning to ash?
It definitely pops, I have to say. And we're going to be, especially on book 1, which we're going to be talking about here in just a second, I want to have you hang tight. Let me just finish up this segment here. And then we have some news to share with y'all watching on the show. All right. So those are the books for this week, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching this, you already know, and you've seen the show before, you already know what to do. In post-production, I put up the poll on the community tab. You can head on over there, and it should be up, and you can cast your vote for which one out of those 3 books you thought had the most text appeal. That's right. So in other words, which one out of those 3 titles would you be most likely to pick up? And if you would like to discover more from the independent market, you can head on over to my shorts tab or my playlist tab, and you can open yourself up some mystery packs. That's right. Inside each mystery pack is a book that has been recognized by the Live Free, Live Rich network that comes from the independent market. And inside the description section of each video, there is a link that will bring you to an editorial written specifically on that book by yours truly. And normally the next segment that I would get into, if I had any, this is one of my newest segments to the show, but I've yet to really get any action on it, and that is the Reader's Review. Okay, the Reader's Review. And what is the Reader's Review? Well, I'm so glad you asked. The Reader's Review is where you share a review with me. Are you an individual who actually takes the time to read books from the independent market? And do you go above and beyond and write a review for what would otherwise be, something that would be largely obscure by mainstream standards? But you just saw something in the work, saw something in the book, you decide to give it a chance, you put your money where your mouth is, you read the book cover to cover, and you decided to take the time, reflect upon the material, and write up a little short review for it. So this could be any kind of short form review, okay? So think like Goodreads. So if you have a Goodreads account and you want to share a review with me, please. And I don't care if it's a 1-star review or a 5-star review. This segment right here is not about gassing up authors or paying lip service or anything like that. This segment right here is just about highlighting readers. However, authors, if you yourself have received some reviews for your own books, then you can share those reviews with me. If you think that there's a reader that took the time and you just like to recognize them, and you think that they deserve to be highlighted, then you can share a review with me and I'll read it here live on the air. Almost like a middleman of sorts, a mediator, if you will, because there's always this thing in the indie space where there's always like this fine line, if you will, where it could be like a conflict of interest almost, where it's like, you want to recognize the people who are reading your books, but at the same time, you don't want there to be like a conflict of interest, or you don't want to come off as like you're humble bragging or something like that, so I just feel like this could be like a nice little halfway point where it's like you can recognize those people can be recognized for reading your book and sharing their opinions, and readers can have a chance to be recognized as well, because I feel like without the readers, then the indie scene is just sales at that point. It's just sales and marketing. Without readers, that's all it is. We need people out here reading these books and talking about these books, and that will form culture. So let's get right into the next segment. There's some announcements. I want to bring my guest back because she has an announcement to make, which has to do with the Lyrical series as well. Hello and welcome back. So this actually has to do with book 1. So you got the series that you're continuing to write. However, you're kind of going back, and it's like almost like a double dip, if you will, where you get to kind of relive the experience of the first book. And you're here to talk about Let There Be Fire. As audiobook is now funding on Kickstarter. You want to talk about that a little bit? The process is what I'm interested in. How you go about getting an audio production done for your work.
Well, I mean, I want the stories to be as accessible as possible. And right now we're in a world that's very go, go, go all the time. So what's become very popular is for someone who just wants to enjoy a book or a story is to have an audiobook going as they're commuting or folding laundry or what the case may be. So I wanted to give that sort of accessibility, and I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just stumbling around, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't really know who to ask or what the quality is or what the going rate is. I was so lucky that I found someone that I just happened to already be friends with, and he had been doing his own narration for his book series. And I'd asked him, well, would you consider it like, servicing for someone else? And he was like, maybe. So I was like, well, I'll send you a free e-copy of it. And if you like it, because I like the way that his voice sounded, I wanted absolutely for this sort of like bro fellowship that's going on. Like, it's not always just bros, but most of the characters are male characters, and they're very, I'm trying to think of like how to say it. The very archetypes. They're the various archetypes of what we think men in fantasy are. So I wanted to have someone who was very deep and sort of like growly in their voice to help present that as a story. And he agreed.
Let's check it out. I actually have. Is this the audio sample right here?
That's on the Kickstarter. Travis right there narrating.
All right. Well, let's hear it right from the horse's mouth as far as that goes. Let's check it out. I don't know how much justice StreamYard will do it. I know sometimes the audio can get a little bit warbly on StreamYard, but give it a go.
An epic fantasy that takes you on a journey through revenge, rescue, and redemption. 3 R's Kalidas Lear never thought he'd play a part in. After a narrow escape from an ill fate, with the help of Avi, a half-blood, Cal swears to even the score. He never expected his oath to take him across the continent of Myrnig, far from everything he's known, though not far from everyone he knows. As a dark elf caught between warring gods, Cal finds his journey to be far more than he bargained for, and the choices only get harder with time.
Some fun visuals on there. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. He's got a little bit of bass. He's got a little bit of bass to his voice.
Yeah. But more delightful is, how there's when you have a very masculine voice narrating and you come to a female character, the go-to is to be very shrill. Trav does not do that. Oh my God, that was such a relief because almost from the get-go is we do have that there's softer voices in there. And he's able to recognize that he doesn't need to go high pitch for them. He just needs to soften.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So
like just like softening,
and
that would be the key word, like just softening the voice, not going too over the top with it.
Yeah. So it's been just a joy working with him, with another fabulous human.
Right. Key word.
So yeah.
So there's no Valley Girl voices in the book.
There's no Valley Girl voices. No.
Oh my God.
No. I don't think there's a Valley Girl character in there so far, but I did tell him, go crazy. The only thing that I wanted to keep was with keeping Cal and Avi's voices very distinct because we're with them for so long.
Right.
And I had described to him that, Cal is someone who's kind of just like impulsive, is going to make jokes at your expense and probably try and make you uncomfortable. And he's like, I know exactly the voice for that. And for Avi, I'm like, imagine a guy who works 2 jobs and has like 5 kids at home and hasn't slept since the 60s.
Oh,
it's
God.
like, I got a voice for that.
End it. Just end it.
So, yeah, it's been a ride. And he's been so good at just helping me because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And he's far more experienced. He's been so good, so patient with my fumbling around. And I've been just ecstatic because we're seeing right here that the project is 52% funded. We launched
yes, congratulations.
last Friday. Yeah, we launched last Friday. We still have another 48 days to go. It's been like, I thought it would be a struggle to get here. So I'm just so stoked. I'm just like so thankful to everyone that's backed. Because
750, that is an attainable goal. That is a very attainable goal.
I'm like, if I can just get a little bit of help, then I can front everything else and like we're golden.
So how many productions did you mention? How many productions that he had been in? I know at least one other one.
He's done quite a lot. I think he's narrated 14 other books, and they've all been from his series so far. Because he has a cyberpunk series, he has a portal fantasy series, he's got some self-help, and he does all his own narration. Like he built his studio so that he could do it himself. He's one of those guys. It's like, I don't need to call someone, I can do it.
Sure. What's his name?
But yeah, so
what's his name?
His name is Travis Seibart, and you can try.
That's his author name as well.
Huh?
That's his author name. Like he have a pen name. Okay.
Nope. His name is Travis Seibart, and Seibart is spelled like Travis backwards.
Okay.
Right. Which I didn't notice until he pointed it out. I'm like, Trav, I've known you for like what, 2 years, 3 years, some amount of time. I have not noticed that your first name is your last name.
So let's get into a little bit about the campaign. Did you do any special perks? I didn't browse ahead of time. Looks like you have some different tiers here.
Yeah. One of the things I did ahead of time is like, again, I went to Jubilee and I was like, okay, I have a thing and I need your help. And I commissioned her to do some character art. And again, I gave her sort of the brief of what's going on, where she knows, oh, this character's a dark elf. This character is a half elf. This one has a giant scar that's just branded on him. This one has a giant tattoo on his back. And I'm like, okay, go wild. Just because, again, it's just letting her take the time to put what's in her imagination so that she can be very passionate about the work. And
you're talking about the character art here. Some of the character art.
Yeah, it's at the bottom. It's going to be the character art in the information. And
okay.
I tried to be very hands-free with it because whatever I have in my head for how they look is going to be incredibly different from how every reader is going to see them. So I was like, all right, hands off. However you see it, we're good to go with that. Like absolute trust. And she delivers every time.
Cal the Dark Elf. Is there
Hmm.
other races in this series? You have the Dark Elves.
There are other races. Is that we had, I say we like there's someone else writing this. Because I started off writing this as a short story based on a D&D one-shot, is I did borrow a lot of races from there. So we do have our orcs and half-orcs, and I had to be very careful with what is trademarked, and I couldn't use it. So there are monsters and villains and other things in there that whatever race or creature they were was trademarked
I was wondering
by
about
Wizards of the
that.
Coast, and I had to like fix it into something else. So I mean, you'll see things on there, but
It's like the
I
whole
did
like
put
Ouija board thing too. Like you can't call it a Ouija board because Ouija board is
really,
actually, yeah, that's a thing. That's actually a thing.
huh?
Technically, Ouija board. That's why people will call them spirit boards in stories or whatever. They might say spirit board or something like that. But the actual name set calling it Ouija is, I guess, is actually trademarked, which is something that I actually did not know.
Yeah.
I actually just learned recently, I should say. Nothing
Yeah,
having to do with me in particular, but just in general. But it is interesting. And I could have imagined, because Dungeons and Dragons, I am familiar with Dungeons and Dragons. I actually, when I was a teenager, I used to have quite a few of the hardcover books, like the bestiaries or whatever, like
Yeah.
the monster manuals and stuff like that. And it's no surprise that they would, trademark specific beast names
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it makes sense that they would do that because they want to protect their intellectual property just the same way that we want to protect ours. So like,
Right.
it's understandable. What I absolutely went through and doing is making sure that drow was not a trademark term, because it was something I was using interchangeably with dark elf. And to cover my ass, there was a whole lore behind it on why they're called that, and it's a shortened term for drowned elf. And the whole history behind that is they thought that this whole entire race had drowned in a particular calamity that happened. So everyone for the longest time thought, oh, they all drowned. And then they kind of just came back and like, oh shit, that drowned elf is not drowned. So it's been fun to do that, to kind of just take and put different spins on lore, so that we have something that's very familiar, that if you're familiar with sort of the D&D archetypes and setting, there is hints of that kind of helps root you to it. If you're familiar with like Greek gods and Greek mythology, there's that helps you kind of be rooted into it.
Yes, that's what I was going to bring up just here, where I was kind of looking over some of the lore. It says, what started as something so simple then takes the pair across the breadth of the continent, where monsters and meddling gods. So meddling gods, almost like, I wonder if they play like a intervening role, like a divine, like there's divine intervention maybe in there. That would be, is there gods plural? So I wonder, where I'm looking at is like, I wonder if the gods would kind of be like, there's like this dual kind of war going on, where it's like, I wonder if the gods will play favorites or something like that, or give favor to certain heroes.
Yeah, they do to an extent. What goes on between them is more or less a cold war, in which it's a very quiet sort of civil war going on between this particular pantheon. And what I thought would be a lot more fun, because of course I'm insane, would be if we had just all these different pantheons existing at the same time, and they're just in charge of these different parts of the earth. So we have the Greek pantheon is there. We have a Slavic pantheon is in charge of a different part of the world. We have the Hindu pantheon is in charge of a different part of the world.
Oh, okay.
And they all have their own thing that they're doing, and very rarely do they kind of collectively agree on something. So in future books, you'll see that, they're going down to some particular place, and Cal will notice, oh, I don't recognize this god. Oh, they're from, this part of the world. They're on this pantheon, but they're helping to guard and safekeep, blah, 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 blah. So there's a lot of politicking going on with gods that happens in the background. And more
so
or less
basically almost like built like, okay, so it's like that would kind of stack on with, or go, I should say, fall under the umbrella of the world building itself, because you're giving yourself, in terms of scope, you're increasing the scope of the story by having all these different types of pantheons, where you could say have a book where, it's not all the pantheons are involved in each and every single book, but depending on where Cal is in the world, he may be affected by the different pantheons in different ways, or any of the characters. I'm just saying in general.
Yeah. Because it was something that I wanted to do in terms of magic building too, is like, how does magic exist? Do you have to be born with it, or can anyone learn it if they have like enough fortitude to do it?
Ah, yes, the magic systems. Please do tell. Do we have hard magic system, or do we have soft magic system?
We've got medium. It's like medium rare. The best kind.
We have medium. It's medium magic.
Yeah. So I thought, what if gods can, much like they do with clerics in D&D, and I think paladins as well, is they kind of like lend a bit of their power to someone that is particularly faithful to them and who carries out their tasks. It's like, all right,
that's just like a god,
huh? There's others that, maybe they don't have the favor of a god, but there's something that they use as a catalyst. Maybe, you take this rat tail and these mushrooms and like this particular back guano from a volcano somewhere. I don't fucking know. And like you bippity boppity boop them together, and now you can like summon something. So if you don't have the catalyst to do something, you can try and get a god's attention, be like, yo, help please.
Ooh, my question. Oh, that could actually be like, I wonder. Now I'm thinking to myself, because there's different pantheons, different types of types of gods, different types of areas. So the magic you're saying is medium, in the sense that what could be in one area would be considered like more of a hard magic type of thing. It's almost sounds like you're saying it where maybe in some areas the magic is a little bit more loosey-goosey, whereas the magic in another area requires more of a hard magic type of style. That's almost what I'm kind of getting from.
And that's something as well when it comes to like, a devotee to a god in terms of how you're getting your magic. There's also a range limit that, let's say you're in Mirnig, but the god that you're a devotee to is a Slavic god and they're in some other part. I think I put them in Mir, which is like way, way up north. It's like on the other side of the world. You're not going to have a very potent kind of spell casting going on. And there's going to be times where it just fizzles. Like it's just, you're out of range. You can't, there's only so far they can reach. And you would then have to besiege another god with like a similar kind of purpose. That if you, let's pick one. Like if you're devoted to a god of the forge, just picking one. And let's say normally you're devoted to Bridget. I don't freaking know. Is Bridget a Slavic god? We're going to just go with that. But she's like out of self-service for you. You can go and besiege Hephaestus and be like, yo, I know your girl Bridget. I could use some help right now. And you negotiate with them on having a bit of favor.
Okay. I dig it.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. I do have this. I do actually.
Overly complicated.
Well, I mean, I'm picking it up. I understand. So it's like kind of different depending on, what the pantheon is going to depend on how the magic system works effectively. So I definitely get that. And I like that. And it definitely gives you plenty of room creatively to kind of just take it in different directions you know,
Yeah.
depending on whatever the campaign is or the story for that particular book in the series. So
Yeah, but it's also less likely that I can just be outright caught accidentally breaking my own rules.
Yeah, right. Set those boundaries. Set some boundaries
Yeah.
there,
There
so you can
there's
say,
there needs to be boundaries and limitations, I think. But if I put just such hard boundaries and limitations, I'm not going to get anything done. So,
well,
yeah.
sounds interesting. Sounds interesting. You have so 48 days left on this campaign, so plenty of time.
Yeah.
Plenty of time to go on this campaign. And
Yeah.
this is the audiobook version. You plan on doing an audio production for all three? You want to see how this one rolls or what?
I would like to have this be the kickoff to making all of them in the series into audio format. So that's why we're starting with one to kind of just see how it goes. And if it does go well, then yeah, we're gonna pick up with the next one and the next one and the next one.
Certainly.
To just let it go. But we do have at the bottom of our reward tiers, we have our God tier level. And one of the things I had done is I've been asking fellow authors that I just happen to be friends with, like, hey, if someone wants to pledge this much to my project, could you
it's a God Slayer level
of your book? So
wait, what was that last part? I was interrupt you.
If they would donate a signed copy of their book so that I can just accumulate more things to put to whoever wants to just one shot the campaign, that you'll get different books from different authors that I just happen to be friends with just sent to you as well. So I put very basic that there's a secret project that I am working on, but I do have friends that they've already said like, yeah, that's a great idea. And they've given me their signed books. So like it'll build on, build on, build on.
All right. Well, I wish you all the best. And I definitely appreciate. Yeah, I thank you for coming on the show, sharing your time with me. And it's definitely.
I was a little worried because you did say that you like to see women cry.
I took it easy this time. I mean, it's first time. You gotta ease them in, right? But thank you, Rachel. Thank you. And maybe I'll have you back on the show in the future.
And then you'll make me cry.
No promises, but I'll think about it. Take care.
Take care.
Bye. All right. All right, let's keep it rolling. Yeah, I did a horrible job. I did a horrible job at making you cry. I'll have to get better at that. So we have, if you guys have something that you're working on, your projects, whether it be your crowdfunders, you got book clubs, anything like that, you can join the Gilded. The Gilded, the link to the Gilded or the Discord servers always in the show notes down below. You can join. It's open invitation. Everyone is welcome. There's no special requirements of you. You don't have to check in daily, engage in small talk if you just want to use it as a resource, just to keep me on the up and up with what's going on with your projects. So you can just go back to just creating and focusing on your own work. You could do so. And for me, it's like I could kind of log in, see who's sharing what, and I can set up these shows ahead of time. That's why I like to have these shows planned out ahead of time for you guys. So there's some sort of structure from one week to the next. So long as people are willing to share their links with me, I will continue to produce these shows for you guys. And this is all about, raising awareness. It's not about, just trying to say, buy. It's a form of discovery. It's like a hangout, coming together. For me, it's not just a form of discovery for you guys, but also a form of discovery for me. There's quite a few books that I've added to my own personal TBR because of authors sharing their work with me. I don't consider myself a promoter. I'm more like just out here, just people who voluntarily share their projects with me, and I want to talk about them. I want to talk about the work. I want to talk about what you're working on. I want to talk about these books, and it is just about raising awareness for these various projects from all around the underground scene, whether it be books, whether it be music. I would like to get into movies as well, like independent film. That is definitely an interest of mine, but that in it and of itself, as far as my own creative endeavors, that's a whole nother beast. That's a whole nother learning curve as far as that goes, but definitely open to the idea of that. So if you're in indie film, indie game development too, sure. We could maybe talk about some indie game development, but mostly I'm into literature, comic books, movies. Indie movies would be interesting, I'd have to say. But in terms of, different opportunities and stuff like that, where we could collaborate with one another, I also still have the Storyteller Society. The Storyteller Society is a project that I launched on the eve of 2022. And what I'm looking for is flash fiction. This is fiction for this project. Is fiction between 500 to 2,000 words. And this can be any genre. It could be, and this is a non-exclusive deal. This is just a public collaborative. So this is think of this as as a peer-to-peer collaboration, and it's free for public viewing. This isn't a commercial project. This isn't an anthology. This isn't something that I'm selling on Amazon and making money from. This is literally just a peer-to-peer collaborative type of project, whereas I just want to leave a door open. That's what I'm trying to kind of accomplish here through the show, through various different means, because creatives interact with each other in different ways based on your own individual level of comfort. People interact different ways. And I know that sometimes creative people can be quite introverted and stuff like that. So this is just kind of a way for me to leave a door open, you know what I'm saying? And just say, hey, if you're a writer, this could be for people who are aspiring authors out there and you've yet to have any of your work published and you like to shoot your shot here. This could be for authors who are published and you're just looking to expand your creative portfolio, if you will, and kind of build a peer-to-peer relationship with yours truly. Now, this can be something that you already have published somewhere else, so long as you own the copyright and you can grant me permission to republish it on my blog. And just because you submit something doesn't automatically mean that it's going to be approved, but you are free to contribute as many times as you'd like. Okay? You contribute as many times as you like. And if approved, then what will happen is you will effectively book yourself a room at what I've dubbed the Hotel del SS, where all the members of the Storyteller Society stay. And that is a project that I continue to market on a regular. So if you happen to get a piece of your work approved, your job is done after that. And you can, and I just continue to market the work on your behalf. Last but not least, if you'd like to stay on the up and up with what's going on with my brand, just live free, live rich in general, you can subscribe to Live Free, Live Rich Weekly. Now you go to the website, www.livefreeliverich.com, right on the homepage. Everyone knows what a newsletter is. That's precisely what it is. Every Saturday, I send out one newsletter that will give you all the pertinent links all across my social medias, the website, what's going on with the brand, whether it be the network, entertainment, or just in general. And finally, if you've got some news to share it with me. Share it with me. Like I say, this could be if you're starting a book club and you want to connect with some other people. If you've got a reading, like a one-time reading event that you're scheduling or that you're planning, hell, I might want to get involved. Let me know, or maybe some other people, you can just let some other people know by sharing the news with me, and I will more than happy to share it during the show for you guys. This could be crowdfunders. This could be just basically any kind of news. When in doubt, just share the link. Don't think. The motto around here is don't think, just share your link. And then I will decide whether or not it's something that I can fit into a show. The idea here is that you can just share and go. And if you want to meet up, we could meet up here every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or you can catch it on the replay. Yes. Was that, you said you were writing a romance? You already got 100,000 words in your next project? Did I hear that correctly? I gotta get back to some writing myself. We're going to be moving into the next segment here with some reading time. Nice. That's a whole novel right there. One thing led to another, and I couldn't say no. The words just kept coming, and I'm like, all right. What am I going to turn them away? What am I going to put them out in the cold? Come on. Let's see what we have here tonight. This one, I believe, let me see this. Oof, it is hot, let me tell you. I knew I should have put the AC in. Is that fat? Your narrator. I hope. I forgot to ask you too. I was like, your narrator knows you're down for like 7 books, right? You got him locked in. Did you lock him in with a contract? You signed it in blood. So you do realize this is like 7 books I got planned on this, right? Oh, he knows. Very good. Yeah. He's locked in. We have, it's good to know people, you know. It's good to know, definitely, it's good to know people, and especially when they're talented people. That's for sure. This comes from Felix Alexander, an award-winning author, Latino. He says, here's mine. He's just sharing a piece of writing here from medium.com. Everything. So medium.com. This is, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not 100% sure what this is. I didn't even skim it or anything before this. So I guess we're going to find out together. This is Love, Not Sex by Felix Alexander. Comes via medium.com. You say, I told him I wanted one voice for the series, which might be 7 to 9 books. Thankfully, he really likes Cal as the character. Yeah, I am, and I was going to say, I imagine with narrators too, they must have a way of taking notes as well. You know what I mean? Almost like, because I do a little bit of I've been doing a little bit of voice acting myself, like kind of like on the side, just for fun, and try to practice that. But I imagine like you would do like an audio recording of like just for notes, like almost like how a writer would take notes on specific characters, like a voice actor or an audio narrator would take audio notes as well. Be like, this is so-and-so character. And then they would say different lines or whatever in that character's voice and then skip to the next character. I would imagine, especially if you're doing a multi-book series, that would make sense. All right, let's check out Love, Not Sex. When the library closes, the words come out to play. The books will leap off the shelves, the letters will float away from the pages, and they will wander away into the night like a melody floating on a midsummer's breeze. The first and the last words always have to do with love. Everything in between morphs into passion and trust and moments that take your breath away. The words rearrange themselves to tell a new tale. Fantasies and fairy tales whisper to us in our dreams. It is there that we find each other like two galaxies destined to collide, a fate set in motion at the beginning of time. I loved you then, only I didn't know that I loved you, because for a time I only knew how to love the idea of you. I tried to find you in different books, occasionally only catching a glimpse of who you are in pieces of what others tried to be, akin to finding a quote here and a quote there that made me stop reading just to reflect, but none told the whole story of you. In the end, I had to return the books before the library closed. They needed to be replaced on the shelves for someone else to read, until one day they would be read by the one for whom they had been written. We all know many loves, Some are short stories and novellas. Others are novelettes and novels that touch our hearts or that we do not finish. I've gathered many books, some simply because I loved the covers, others because I loved the words. Most I opened because I found their stories fascinating, but few ever inspired me enough to return. So, when they asked me now, how are you still single? I don't know where to begin. There was a time when I couldn't answer that question without having the story leave me in the form of tears. There were no words then because I couldn't breathe. I'd play the songs that explained what I felt, but I couldn't see anyone's reaction in the blur that blinded me. That was when I fell away from the world. I hid, so no one would see me cry. I didn't know it then, but I learned that it's okay to cry. It's okay to be a man and feel what I feel, hurt when I hurt, and smile when I smile, because it is a part of who I am. After all, a creative cannot create something beautiful without pouring out his or her heart. And the only way to pour out what's inside is to break it open. That's when I realized that what I am and who I am deserves something more. That's when I committed to abstinence from sex. It'll be 5 years on May 15th. So at first I thought this was almost like a story of sorts, or like a poem. But apparently this is more of like a general blog post, it sounds like. It'll be 5 years on May 15th. 5 years. It'll be 5 years on May 15th. And the few that I've shared this with have praised my discipline and said they couldn't do it. I suppose it's easier for some than it is for others, as far as that goes. I imagine that would be a pretty difficult. You'd have to have a lot of discipline if you're, the type you gotta, if you're beating them off with a stick, as far as that goes. I confess to them that it hasn't been easy. I confess to them that it hasn't been easy. Truth be told, I've been on a few dates and almost gave in a few times. Ultimately, I decided that I'd rather wait for something that calms my soul. Life's too short, and there are far too many cheaters to settle for anything that doesn't make you feel absolutely safe. I know it sounds too idealistic, but the way I see it, the duality in nature, light, dark, hot, cold, order, chaos, it exists for a reason. It reminds me that if I, as a man, am willing to be a fully devoted partner, willing to be everything and accept everything about someone, regardless of how incomplete and insecure she feels about herself, because I will have fallen in love with her and not just her appearance, then there has to be a woman out there willing to be the same for me. Definitely getting some bleeding heart energy here. A little hopeless romantic, perhaps. Matching energy. I like to believe in the words of Paulo Coelho. Wow, that, as if he brought up Paulo Coelho. I'm no joke. I had no idea that was going to happen, because I literally am bringing up Paulo Coelho later on in this show. That's very serendipity, I have to say. Synchronicity, if you will. I like to believe in the words of Paulo Coelho. When you truly want something, the universe conspires with the stars to grant your wish. That comes from The Alchemist. I've spent my youth having fun. I've known what it feels like to have a woman's nails. Oh my God. I've known what it feels like to have a woman's nails tear at the flesh on my back and have the sweat burn in those wounds like acid. I have felt a woman quiver in my arms after an intense encounter, speechless, clinging to me as her breathing struggles to fall in sync with the beat of her heart. It's getting hot in here. I've known what it is like to have a woman submit to my every desire. I realize now that the deepest bond is not only more than that, but when you know each other and trust each other, you truly get to experience each other's souls first. The physical intimacy eclipses just sex in a profound way that gives meaning to what becoming one truly means. That's the book I want to read. That's the book I want to write. So when the words come out to play after the library closes, I wait for the whispers to guide me into the realm of my dreams that lead to where you belong. I'm holding out for that, so when it happens, I can turn to you and say, you were worth the wait. Well, he did admit that he has already experienced the touch of a woman. So I don't know if this is kind of like a born again virgin type of story or what we're dealing with here. We got some tags: love, sex, passion, trust, and words. That was written by Felix Alexander. I appreciate that one, Felix. So if you guys have something that if you would like to contribute something to Reading Time, this is your opportunity to share something from your own blog. So this could be something that you have published on your own website, on your own blog, or it could be a third-party website like medium.com, Wattpad. I could read an episode from a Kindle Vella series or like a Royal Roads, anything like that. If you want to submit the first chapter of one of your novels, that could also be something that I could read during this segment. So this is more long form, but it doesn't have to be fiction. So if you write editorials, if you're doing book reviews, but in like an editorial form, like a long form essay kind of format, I could read that during this segment. I could read whether it be just regular essays, whether it be on a philosophical topic, a metaphysical, or just you're just talking about writing in general. I could read anything like that. Don't think, share your link. DA, how you doing? Welcome. Just in time for a little bit of media. We got some featured media tonight. This is going to be fun. I've been looking forward to this all week, I have to say. I put some work into this one. Definitely made me think. For sure. I'm going to set this up. This is a Booktube tag video. So I was tagged in a video for this one from somebody else's channel. Some of you may be familiar with. Let me just get this segment set up here. You guys pop it into the chat. You want to drop a little hello. You want to let me know where you're at. You working on anything? You got anything that you've been writing lately? You might want to submit to the show or just let me know what you got. You want to get a shout out. And for those of you watching on the replay, just a little FYI, I will revisit previous videos, okay, previous streams. So if you leave any comments on previous streams, anything like that, so feel free to, you can drop a comment. You can share links. I don't know what the deal is with YouTube and links. I don't know. Some people say don't do it. Quite frankly, I don't. It doesn't bother me. Look, you guys want to plug your stuff in the comments down below. You can share some links. If it will let you, it'll let you. If it won't, it won't. I'm not the, arbiter of those things. So if it will let you share the link, then go right ahead. If you want to share links in the comments, you can do so. If it'll let you. Let me know what you're working on. And this is going to be fun. Like I say, I've been looking forward to this. It's been a while since I've had some featured media on the show. So the queue, if you guys want to share videos with me, you can either tag me in them or share a link to your video. And I'll watch it during the show, add some commentary, maybe give first impressions, what have you. Anything like that. I'll give you some more details as we go along here. But I'm just about finished setting up for this segment. All right, so I was tagged earlier in the week by Nicole's Bookish Nook. Yes, Nicole's Bookish Nook. And this is kind of like, I believe this is kind of like an ongoing series that she's doing here, which is a music-related book tag video. We've had rock on, metal songs, book tag. I've done 2. So this would actually make the 3rd time I've been tagged in this series, and I am quite honored that she's thought of me and wanted to include me in this. But I will say that it can be quite a challenge, but it is fun. Definitely gets me thinking. So she tagged me, and this one is called Punk On Rock Songs Book Tag. So let's see what Nicole has for me this time. So this is her original tag. This is the original tag that she created. And courtesy from her channel, Nicole's Bookish Nook, right here on YouTube, for those of you who are interested. And of course, I will be leaving links to her channel and the original video in the show notes down below. So for those of you who I tag in here, you know where to link for the original creator of the tag. If you decide to participate. I always like to double check, make sure I shared the audio. All right.
What's up?
Yeah, I took notes and everything, Nicole. If you see this, I took notes and everything to prepare for this tag. I remember when I originally kind of pitched the idea of like maybe doing participating in tag videos, that I thought that I was just going to be able to like do these on the fly. No, no. These tag videos, some of them, they definitely require some thought ahead of time.
Buttercup, welcome back to my
What's up,
channel.
Buttercup?
Today's original tag is punk on rock songs. Now, this is punk songs mainly, with a couple of rock songs all about books. I did rock on metal songs and metal on rock songs, and this is going to be the third in the series of those original tags with song names regarding books. So let's jump right in with the first question. American Jesus by Black Flag, a fiction or nonfiction book about religion. And I'm going with Misquoting Jesus, the story behind who changed the Bible and why by Bart D. Ehrman. Pretty sure that's how you say his last name. I found this out from my husband, and we also watched a lot of Bart's great courses on the Bible, and I really enjoyed his writing, and I want to read all of his books in time. He has quite a few, so I'm slowly working my way through.
All right. Just waiting for my computer to catch up here. All right, so something to do with religious and Bible. All right, or what was that? Religious one. Hold on, I'll read the prompt. So the first one was from American Jesus by Black Flag, and it says the prompt is a fiction or nonfiction book about religion, and I am also going to go with something that has to do with the Bible. However, mine isn't the King James Bible or anything like that. I'm actually going to go with the Satanic Bible by Anton Zander LaVey. The Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey. This book represents peak edgelord literature for the modern era, which was a time period spanning from the 1800s to the dawn of the 80s, or maybe the late 1970s. This book right here had quite an effect on the zeitgeist. The zeitgeist endured quite a cultural metamorphosis, let's just say, during that time period and leading into what is now known as the postmodern era. And some say that we are now beyond the postmodern era and we're living in what is called the meta-modern era. But really, that could just be a whole video in and of itself. But I just kind of say that we're in the postmodern era. But this right here, this literature right here, had a huge, was like a cultural phenomena when it came out, and it definitely had its influence on everything from the music industry to cinema to to books and not just in the art world either, because it actually spanned a whole new religion in and of itself, the Satanic religion, which is actually a recognized religion. So yeah, definitely this represents, that's what I mean by this represents peak edgelord. So like nowadays, nowadays it might be kind of humorous, someone they're reading the Satanic Bible. Ooh, ooh, edgy. But back in the day, this was about as edgelord as it got. This was peak edgelord right here. But definitely in terms of historical, but definitely holds weight, I think, in terms of historical significance within the zeitgeist, because it's like a lot of things changed. A lot of changes started to happen in the social zeitgeist. I'm not pinning it to this, and I'm also not glorifying it either. Okay. I'm just stating it as like matter of fact. And I'm also not saying that this book on its own is the cause for a lot of the changes in the social zeitgeist, but it was certainly a phenomena in it and of itself that kind of propelled and perpetuated maybe some different ideas and movements, if you will, that happened as a result of this literature coming out. I thought I'd give a little, you did something with the Bible. I thought I might give a little yin to the yang as far as that goes. Yes.
Number 2, Last Caress by the Misfits. A book with extreme violence. I'm talking like extreme violence. And I gotta choose it, Dead Inside by Chandler Morrison.
That one again?
Messed up book, most violent, most gory.
You swear by that book, Nicole.
Disturbing, all of those types of descriptive words by Chandler Morrison. You know what I'm talking about, for those few that have read the book, because I said that I read it and it was good, like good in the sense of writing and satire and splatterpunk and all of that. Like, it's not good, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. It keeps freezing up. Yeah, I've heard of it. I actually haven't read The Dead Inside or just Dead Inside. But yeah, I've heard plenty about that book. I pretty much know what is involved in it and how it falls under that splatterpunk kind of category. Let's see what I went with here. I am going with I'm actually going with a splatterpunk novel myself, or actually the author described this one as extreme horror. That is Strange Flesh. Strange Flesh by Sam West. Kind of rolls off the tongue there a little bit. Strange Flesh. If you know, you know. As far as that goes. Strange Flesh by Sam West. This book is advertised as extreme horror. And I would say that it certainly met my expectations as far as what I would classify as extreme. You could probably consider this splatterpunk or maybe erotic horror. The horror genre is kind of like metal music in the sense that there are all these writers out here that like form these like niche subgenres, like very niche subgenres in the horror. Like horror is very metal in that sense that there's like, so it seems like there's a new subgenre popping up every other week. So it's really like they get like hyper focused on one particular type of gimmick, because horror, let's face it, the horror genre is kind of laden. There's a lot of gimmicks in the horror genre. So it's like you can have a narrative that revolves, for instance, just around body horror. So like I say, the horror genre is rife with gimmicks as far as that goes. And this one, however, was kind of more of a psychological type of horror. However, extremely violent, very violent, and pretty erotic too. Oh, it's huge. It's huge in the indie scene. I almost want to say, like, as far as in the indie scene goes, I feel like horror is probably one of the, dare I say, gateway genres for a lot of indie writers. I feel like a lot of indie writers, it's either horror or it's romance. However, fantasy is huge as well, though. Or fantasy is pretty popular as well. But horror, yeah, horror for sure. There's like there's a lot of people in the horror genre that I've noticed that are like very adamant about it. Like they go out and they're almost like what's the word? It's almost like they're out there and they're like rooting for horror in general, kind of like a representatives, I guess, of the horror community, where they're going out to bookshops and they're like petitioning bookshops to make room for indie horror, to make room for horror in general, like just a straight horror category. Because I don't know if that was always a popular thing for bookstores to have like a horror category. Like there'd be thrillers. I remember there'd be thrillers and suspense and stuff like that, but maybe not always so common for there to be like a horror specific section of the bookstore, even though there are all these subcategories, which kind of blows my mind because there's all these subgenres within horror. But all of it could just fall under the umbrella of horror. But it is metal in the sense that, like, you can't just go to the metal category of the music store and just pick any old metal album. You could pick 2 metal albums from the metal category of the music store, and those albums have be 2 completely different styles of music, even though they fall under the umbrella of metal. The only part where they share that they're metal is that they may have electric guitar, distortion, and drums. You know what I mean? And that's about it. And then it could differ in all other aspects as far as that goes. Yes, Steve Talks Books. Steve Talks Books. Shout out to Steve Talks Books. He's gone to Scares That Care convention and interviewed. I saw some of those interviews, as a matter of fact. Yeah, he gets out there. He goes out there and talks one-on-one with a lot of the authors. He's talked to quite a few of those authors. He's dedicated his channel to giving a lot of those authors a platform, a lot of those unknowns too, that maybe no one's ever heard of before. And yeah, Steve's been around. That's for sure. Let's keep it moving.
Ruby Soho by Rancid, a book about a bad relationship you loved or hated. As in, like, you're so amused by this really bad, stupid relationship that you kind of love it.
This was a tough one, Nicole. I have to say.
And I'm going to go with Verity by Colleen Hoover. Hated Lowen and Jeremy. I wrote on Goodreads for my 1-sentence review, very short review. The book was so bad, it's average. And so I gave it 3 stars. And
so bad it's average.
That vibe for them. It was so terrible that it's a 5-star book. And I don't know why that's such a vibe.
Is it bad to be mid?
Verity, but I understand.
What's wrong with being mid? You want to be bad. If you're going to be bad all the way. Don't half-ass being bad. Are you saying mid is really just half-assing being bad at something or being good at something? You either be good at something or be bad at something.
Understand. Like, I couldn't give it 5 stars, but it was so amusingly bad, especially them 2. I had to give it 3 stars. It's an average. Average is
they were mid
for me.
They were totally mid.
But oh my god, don't do anything that they do. You want a good relationship, don't be like Lowen and Jeremy, and then you'll be golden.
All right. All right. This is what I got. This is what I came up with. This one I really had to put some thought into. And I even now I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, this is a bit of a stretch. I mean, I don't read a lot of romance and I'm not into, it's kind of like a subplot to the story, their relationship. But I'm going to go with Crane and Shailene from Blackstone Heart by Michael R. Fletcher. I got quite a bit to say about this one. I might go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I remember finding their relationship to be quite cringe, mostly when it came to their sexual relations, I have to say. Let's just say that Crane is the type of obnoxious character that believes people around him are treating him poorly due to prejudice against the way he looks. And Shailene is one of the first individuals in the book to give him attention, and in more ways than one, let's just say. And just so happens to be an attractive looking female. So it starts off and they meet on this, I believe it was a caravan or something like that, where Crane kind of hooks up with this group on a caravan, and he thinks that these people are being judgmental of him, even though they're helping him out and they're giving him a ride into town. But he doesn't like, he's very reserved. He's got that obnoxious type of air about him. But he says, any quote, "She sat with me out of choice, or maybe pity. While grateful for the company, anger built in me. This was wrong. I was no one's dog." So right out the gates, you can kind of tell what kind of guy he is. Here he is. He's by himself on this caravan. No one's paying attention. This girl comes up, sits next to him, and this is the kind of attitude he has about it. You know what I mean? Now he's saying, a real tough guy, right? He's a real tough guy. This was all wrong. I was no one's dog. 4 chapters later, and I quote, "I kissed one ass cheek and bit the other. Then I shuffled downstairs, relying on the walls for support, and fetched us 2 whiskeys each." That's a good boy, Crane. He deserves a treat, don't you think? I don't know if those specific words were intentional, but I did pick up that the first time when I was reading through the book, and that definitely the cringe made me chuckle. That's for sure. If there's one, but I will say this much though, if there's one relationship dynamic that I absolutely despise, then that would have to be a relationship where the woman is bossy and domineering, and the man is meek and subservient. He is a man that carries around a milquetoast demeanor with his tail tucked between his legs. And the only time he ever dare raise his voice to a woman is to say, "Yes, dear." You'll know him when you see him too, because he's the type of guy that's always in the middle of a honey-do list that never seems to end. And when called out, he just shrugs his shoulders to his chagrin and utters, "Happy wife, happy life." I pity the fool. But sometimes the shit show can be amusing, I have to say, whether it be in the form of fiction or from a safe distance away. But that's about it for me.
4, Last Dance by David Bowie, a book that has at least one dance scene in it. And I'm going to go with Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. That's when, they're at the ball. And, we're talking about dance cards and are we going to dance with who and who is interested or who's the wallflower. And, we have a little dance with Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, and don't we love to see it? I really love the Matthew McFadden and Keira Knightley version. I think that they are the best. Don't come at me in the comments. Number 5.
All right. This is a short one. So I have to name a book that has a dance scene in it. And I am going with Down in Blood by Kalia Wilde. And there's a dance, all right, and it takes place at the old motorcycle club. Good times. Keep it short and sweet on that one.
Gloria by Patti Smith, a fiction or nonfiction book about Catholicism, or there's mention of Catholicism in it. And I'm going to go with The Great Courses, The Early Middle Ages by Philip Deleiter. Sorry, Philip, I messed up your name. And I know you say it in the introduction to The Great Courses, but I watched this 2.5 years ago. It was great. Okay, there was some talk about Catholicism, not even just some talk. There's a lot of talk about Catholicism because this is the early Middle Ages and it's a thing. Lust for
All right. So a book that has Catholicism in it specifically. Well, let's see here. Well, I could say The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty, because an exorcism, which is performed by a priest, is a practice of the Catholic religion. However, bearing that in mind, I will take this opportunity to shout out an indie author. So bearing that in mind, exorcisms, that is, bearing that in mind, I'm pretty sure exorcisms, I mean, there might be in different religions, but usually if it's done by a priest, then that means it's specifically a Catholic practice. And I want to go with No Rest for the Wicked. Not necessarily because of exorcisms for this one. I want to go with No Rest for the Wicked by Dane Cobain. And in that story, there's a character by the name of Father Montgomery. So priests are referred to as Father in the Catholic Orthodox religion. And whereas, like, for instance, like in like Christian Baptist setting, he would be known as Pastor Montgomery. So it's a fun novel, by the way. In No Rest for the Wicked, there's like a catalyst event set forth by scientists, actually, which causes skeptics to question their understanding of reality, but also the religious to question their faith. So I thought it was a pretty clever premise and not poorly executed.
Life by Iggy Pop, a novel that brought you a lot of joy, a lot of happiness, just all the good feelings. And I'm going with Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I still need to buy the book because I got it from the library, actually. Was very happy to see that the library carried it because it's so new. There was a long wait, honestly. So I forget how long it took. 3 weeks, a month, something like that. And I found this out on Goodreads recommendation. That's really the only time that Goodreads has recommended me a solid book so far. Big thumbs up. Thank you, Goodreads. I wouldn't have found it other than the suggestion from Goodreads. So I'm really glad that it did pop up and that I noticed it.
That's cool.
Usually I just scroll. But I was excited by the cover, and then I was really excited by the summary, and then it was fantastical reading. It's a solid 5 out of 5 stars for me, and I'm excited for the next novel. I don't know when that's coming out, hopefully as soon as possible, but I really need to save up money or something like that to get the hardback. They don't have paperback, but I want the hardback. It needs to be on my shelf, like, no doubt. All of the books in that series. I don't know if it's going to be how many books are going to be in that series, but it needs to be on my bookshelf. Just saying, because it brings me
You're
joy.
kind of gushing a little bit, I have to say.
See books about fairies, and it doesn't even need to be like in a city setting. It's just like they're normal. They just happen to be in your world, and it's a regular thing. I love those types of books. Not really seen a lot unless it's urban fantasy. That's why I mentioned urban fantasy. But I like to see it in like old-timey books because this is kind of like the early 1900s. And it's just a vibe. Number 7.
All right. Yeah, you were definitely... I can't tell if you like that book or not, Nicole. So what do we have? That was number 6. That was number 6, Lust for Life by Iggy Pop. And he said, and the prompt is a novel that brought you a lot of joy. Now that sounds like it would be simple, right? This sounds like it should be an easy prompt, but it's kind of a loaded question, but because, like, where do I even start? You know what I mean? Like, I like different novels for different reasons, but I also don't want to repeat something that I've already mentioned before. Just that's a me thing. Like, I'm trying to challenge myself to kind of like keep these book tags kind of fresh. So I'm going to so what I'm going to do here, I think the best way that I could go about this one, just something that brought me a lot of joy. I'm just going to go with another one of my favorite classics. And for this one, I'm going with Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. So Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This is classic mainstream sci-fi that is good. It's fun. There is a strong kind of message in the narrative itself. There's some movie adaptations you can compare it to as well, which is always fun. Unfortunately, the copy of the novel that I own is cross-promoting the shitty 2018 HBO film that came out of the same name. But it's one of those adaptations where it's more of a what they call a reimagining, if you will, because they take some of the characters and create a new plot that utilizes similar themes from the novel. But I remember they also tried to incorporate futuristic technology in a way that I thought just ruined the original narrative of the source material. However, the other one there, I think it was like I forget the year. It's 1961. So there's 1966. Yeah. So there's also the I would say if you're going to check out any of the movies, check out the 1966 one, even though they also changed that one a little bit too. And you'll know, because this is the actual like original novel of the work, but for whatever reason, sometimes they'll do this thing where they do cross promotion for one of the movies and they'll put that on the cover, which, I don't really care for this book cover. But yeah, the 1966 movie is decent. It stays truer to the source material. However, I was a little bit bummed that there wasn't one of those like animatronic dog type robots or whatever in the movie. And if you know, you know. But Fahrenheit 451, good read.
Blister in the Sun by Violent Femmes, a novel set in a very hot climate. And I'm going with To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. It's set in Alabama. No, thank you. It's
Bama.
hot and it's humid. And those two things do not mix with me personally. I'm not interested in hot and humid. I can deal with hot, and if it's slightly humid, that's fine. Can't really deal with hot and dry because that just messes up my skin and my breathing, and not interested. But I would actually choose hot and dry over hot and humid because my hair becomes really disgusting and you're just sweating all the time. And no, thank you. Not interested in
Sticky and hot.
completely always sweaty, which I was in Virginia. No, it's not hot. It's not hot all the time, but during the summers, it's I don't like it. So I was
Kind of
glad
hot
to
over
leave.
here right now.
Number 8. Don't.
All right, so this one, story that takes place. So speaking of hot, apparently 451 degrees ain't hot enough, because now I have to come up with a novel that takes place in a hot setting or a torrid climate, for that matter. I'm going to go with, remember, like I said before, The Alchemist. Like I was saying before, it's quite serendipity with the Paulo Coelho. This is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Because the main character goes on a pilgrimage of sorts into the deserts of Egypt in search of buried treasure. But instead, he uncovers the true value of an allegory. It ain't gonna pay the rent, but The Alchemist is a timeless tale worth its weight in base metals turned to gold.
Don't Drag Me Down by Social Distortion, a book that brought you down because it was bad. Oopsie. Okay, I'm going to go with The Wolfen by Whitley Strieber. My husband said it was a good book. I read it and it was 2 stars. Not the best writing. So when I give 2 stars, there was a good concept in there, but it did not work out. There was definitely a good concept, good idea, good story, but it fell flat for me, especially the ending. And it's not even a long book. I think it's about 300 pages. I'm trying to remember when it was published, like the 70s or 80s, something like that. I don't know other works by Whitley. Not like I would read more, honestly, because it was just not a good book. So
A novel
usually
of
when
inescapable
a book is a 1 or 2
terror.
star, I don't read other stuff of that author. And my husband hasn't read other stuff by that author, so he can't even vouch for him. I don't know where he got the recommendation for that book, because maybe he was given that book, and that book is on his bookshelf, and I don't even know where it is. When we moved, we've lost some books, and I think that was one of the books we lost. It's somewhere in storage. I don't. It's gonna happen to come up whenever. I don't know. It's not a loss. That feels a little shady, but that's a little. It is. Oh. I was sad.
You won't miss it, is
that
what
it
you're
wasn't
saying.
as good as I thought it would be, because I had a great premise.
All right. So this was another one that I thought was a little bit difficult. I will say that the most recent book, I'll go with a recent book. Okay. The most recent book that I read that genuinely brought me down. And I don't mean in terms of feeling depressed, but more so just like disappointed due to the sheer amount of what I perceived as squandered potential. Nothing disheartens me more than seeing the potential in someone or something and having to live through the experience of it being squandered, at least from my perspective. And that's how I felt after reading The Dead Inside. So you've read Dead Inside, Nicole. This is The Dead Inside. This is The Dead Inside. This is an anthology. This is an anthology project that was published by Dark Dispatch that revolves around identity horror. So there's those subgenres again, identity horror, which I actually thought was an awesome concept. It was an awesome concept for an anthology. But unfortunately, it's just one of those ones, it was just poorly executed. There were some standout entries in this collection, for sure, that were quite exceptional, in fact. But here's the blurb that I wrote for my editorial on this book. I said, now tell me if this doesn't kind of get you hyped, at least in terms of the whole idea of identity horror. And the reason why I'm reading this is not to toot my own horn, but just to show you where my mind was at in terms of the amount of potential that I saw in this kind of, in this niche, if you will. For many people, their identity is the only thing that keeps them grounded in reality. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself what an identity is? Is your identity a job, a hobby, or some combination of social/economic status? Is your identity founded upon a collection of biological facts proven by science? Is your identity a set of preconceived notions based upon personal beliefs, ideology, or cultural background? What happens when what you've internalized as your identity becomes threatened by external forces? Do you lose yourself? Do you lose touch with reality? Or worse? The Dead Inside features 30 different writers within the pages of this horror anthology published by Dark Dispatch. Now, you go ahead and read the Dead Inside anthology published by Dark Dispatch, and you tell me if you feel the same way about it afterwards, because I know for a fact that project could have been so much better than what it turned out to be. Personally. But identity horror, though, maybe something to visit at a later time.
Lastly, number 9, we're going to tag some people. We're going to tag Adam Rodriguez.
All right, so tag here at the end. Thank you for that, Nicole. Appreciate it. Another challenging one, but I was up to the task. So, so this is who I'm going to tag. So I'm just going to go ahead, tag 3 people right now. If you want to do it, you can do it. You up for the challenge? This is what I want to. This is who I tag. I tag Greener Side of Sam, Liam's Lyceum, and I also tag Book Jack. So consider yourselves tagged. You want to take on this, and just enjoy yourself and see. And I'll be interested to see what you guys come up with. Perfect Blue. Yeah, but there's also like with all those little like subgenres too. With all those like subgenres, like there's like weird stuff. And it's also like the tone of it can be different as well, because it's like for instance, like body horror. I noticed like with body horror, like one thing, like you can get into like bizarro shit where it's like it's body horror, but it's not taken seriously. It's body horror, but it's like almost like dark comedy. There was remember that movie? I actually haven't seen the movie, but I saw the previews of it and I saw some of the scenes, but it's called Walrus. And that's like would fall under the subcategory of body horror, where the guy hooks up with this like mad scientist, like kind of like level plastic surgeon, and he turns himself into a freaking walrus or something like that. I don't know the exact plot of it, but I'm just like, wow, that's really freaking weird, really bizarre. But that's what I mean by like it's horror, but it's not always like takes itself seriously. Sometimes like it's like dark comedy, I guess, but it still kind of falls under the thing like it's horrific to see. It's a horrific sight to see. So with that body horror. But the identity horror thing, I'm like, wow. The reason why I thought the identity horror was so great is because it's gives you such a broad spectrum to work with. There's so many different directions that you could take that. You know what I mean? Whether it be rooted in cultural identity, whether it be rooted in biological identity, whether it be rooted in economic, socio-political type of status type of deal. You know, there's all these different directions that you could go with just this identity horror thing. But I haven't seen that Perfect Blue. I don't know what that's about. If you guys have some media that you'd like to share, you'll jump right ahead in the queue. Like I say, that was just a video that I just so happened to be tagged in earlier this week. So I was like, oh, what the hell? I'll just tackle it this week on this week's show. So, but share media. It doesn't have to be a video that you guys do. It could be a reading. Like if you do like a poetry reading, or if you're just reading like a chapter of your own book, or you're doing a short story, you do a web series type deal, or if you do like video essays or something like that. All right, last segment here before I kind of wrap things up. And I have a few. lined up. But we had a comment during the week, so I think that one's going to take precedent. But this next segment is something that I call Hot Topic for Content Creators. Hot Topic for Content Creators. This is where I pitch a hot topic to you guys. You guys turn around, create your own content on said topic, and if you tag me in your video or just share a link with me, then I may feature your video during a future live stream. That's right. Or else you're always welcome to go back, check out any of my previously pitched hot topic videos, and you can just go ahead and leave some comments down below on those. And you can just think about it, and I will address your comments live on the air during a future show. Another way is if you have your own blog and you want to write up an essay on any kind of subject as we kind of like embroider these topics together, you're more than welcome to do so. And if you share the link with me, I'll read it live on the air and we can kind of continue to have these discussions together. You know, I don't want this to just be a one-way street where I'm just talking at you guys. I would really, you know, because I come from the old school days of YouTube where before there was live streams and there were panel discussions, people used to just upload like discussion videos where they would just share what's on their mind about particular topics. It could be philosophical, religious, metaphysical, what have you. And then people would do reaction videos or like they would upload a video in response to, I should say, what they would do. And then there would be a back and forth, almost like doing like video pen pals effectively. So I guess kind of in a way, that's what I'm looking at it like. The AMVs. For this one, I do have a comment that was left during the week, which would fall under Indie Author Folly. So Indie Author Folly, what is this prompt for this hot topic? The prompt for this hot topic for Indie Author Folly is just simply looking for the business practices, the marketing strategies, or just the general public relations that you've witnessed within the indie scene that have made you cringe. Now, I'm just talking about behaviors here. This is for this hot topic. We're just focused on the behaviors, and that's it. So we can kind of like use this as like a learning experience, if you will. This isn't an open forum to shit talk other authors or spread gossip or anything like that. No kind of tea time type of stuff. Just focused on the behaviors themselves and see where we can kind of learn, you know, what works, what doesn't work, where are people's minds at, where their headspace at when it comes to people who do this or people who do that, you know, and people can learn and kind of grow. So if you've done some of these things before, not necessarily talking bad on you because, hey, maybe you might learn something. You say, oh, that's how people feel about that. Maybe I switch things up and I don't do that anymore. Or maybe I learned something new, that type of deal. Let's see what we got. Yeah, that seems to be an ongoing thing. Rachel, right out the gate, she's got one. Answer: smut in YA. Because why? Why would you do that? Why is there a demand for that by women in their 30s? Yeah, it is interesting. It is this weird thing, huh? I mean, I can't really speak too much on it. You know, I don't know what goes through women's minds a lot of times when it comes to that type of stuff. You know, may think that, hey, maybe it's one of those things where it's like clinging to the youth, you know? I don't know. Cling to the youth. But then again, why not just read adult books? You know, why not just read, like, isn't there plenty of like beefcake romance for that purpose? You know, the whole beefcake romance thing. You know, the Fabio guys on the covers, and you know, or the 50 Shades of Grey type of stuff. You know, or just straight up erotica. You know, a lot of women. I would say, I almost want to argue that when it comes to literature, and this might be a hot take in it and of itself, but I almost want to say that I have witnessed more women involved in the erotica scene, in the erotica genre, writing for the erotica genre, than I have men, or at least men who have admitted that they write for the erotica genre, because there's also that too. Because I have heard of men who take on female pen names and then write for the erotica genre. Because maybe it might be an embarrassment type of thing where the guys, you know, where guys like, they don't want to, like, you know, maybe not be made fun of by the bros, you know, if they're writing those Fabio kind of stories or something like that. Where, you know, where you're writing a sex scene, an explicit sex scene that involves another man and what he's doing with a woman or whoever, as far as that goes. You know, it might be a little bit weird to like kind of project yourself into another man's shoes in that way. As a woman, I also don't know what goes through their minds. I have a comment here. Has to do with something else. Yeah, that could be it too. That could be something. I think maybe that could be, but I feel like the stigma's kind of gone away in terms of women taking on, like, say, for instance, there's women who would take on male pen names. And I don't know what the whole deal is with that either. Women taking on men's pen names, like they think that that's going to increase their chances of being recognized or this or that. I have absolutely no qualms about reading. I gotta be honest with you. I honestly do not pay attention to. In other words, it's not like in like front and center of my mind when I pick up a book and like, I need to read it more female, like, because that annoys the shit out of me too. When there's like booktubers out there or just readers in general that like they gotta compartmentalize everything. Oh, I gotta read some more BIPOC authors. I haven't read enough BIPOC authors this year. I need to read more BIPOC authors, you know, or I need to read more female authors. My stats. I don't have enough stats. You know, it's got to be equal. You know, I want to make sure I'm giving everyone an equal. What if you just focused on the work? You know, wouldn't that be funny to just kind of see what happens when you just start focusing on the work itself and then just kind of surprise yourself and just see after the fact, like who you were reading, you know? Wow, I read some works. These were the shitty books. These were the good books. And these books just so happen to be written by male authors. These ones just so happen to be written by female authors. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. There's a mix of both. There's a mix of shitty authors. There's a mix of shitty female authors and shitty male authors. Oh, wait a minute. There's a mix of good male authors and shit and good. I was shitty again. There's no such thing as good female authors. Everyone knows this. It's canon. Just like there's no such thing as good female drivers. All right? It's a myth. They're unicorns. All right, let me get into this comment before I get myself into trouble there. That's a little Freudian slip. All right, so this comes from somebody who is no stranger to the channel. Appreciate him stopping by. And this is Ben Pick. Ben Pick from Running to Write. Let's see if I can fix that up there. How's that look? All right, Ben Pick from Running to Write. Ben writes, this is a tricky subject. I tend to stop following people. So Indie Author Folly 6, this is what I was talking about. It came from a clip where I was reacting to or responding to a video that was uploaded by Ian Kirkpatrick, where she was kind of going through some marketing practices that she finds to be gross, actually. And one of them was like where she dubbed the opiners who kind of say that everyone else's stuff sucks except for theirs. So they're kind of like the self-appointed experts, as I kind of interpreted that, and I kind of went on. So Ben writes, this is a tricky subject. I tend to stop following people who promote themselves too much, even if they include a disclaimer about how they are not an absolute authority of information. There are a lot of channels that I no longer watch because they mention their books or services in every episode. This can work if the person is doing a specific topic that is related to their book, or if they are promoting something new for few episodes. This is a nebulous line, but once crossed, it is hard to go back. So kind of Ben kind of sharing his 2 cents on that one. I appreciate the comment, Ben. I do have something to say about that. And I did write something down here. I kind of just, and I'll ad lib as I go along. So I will say that, you know, at the end of the day, let me start off by just saying, at the end of the day, every individual should be minding their own business, as their business is their responsibility and no one else's. Okay. So I can't, so right out the gates, I will say that I can't fault an indie creator for getting their hustle on, so to speak, because let's face it, it's hard out here for a pimp. All right. Especially if you're indie, you know, you don't have a full marketing team backing you. You don't have advertisers. You may not have a huge marketing budget. So social media might be your only outlet for, you know, getting your work out there. So every time you upload some content or something like that, that could be a new opportunity to kind of plug something that you've already published before, because you never know who might come across your videos, you know, and every single set of eyeballs counts when you start getting into, you know, the underground scene, because, you know, it could just be a word of mouth. It could only take one person to learn about something that you've done and just give you that chance. And that could be your new, you know, biggest fan, so to speak. You know what I mean? I hate using that term. I really do, especially for the indie scene, because a lot of us are just peers out here. You'll find a lot of the people who are involved in the indie scene are artists themselves. So I like to consider people peers for the most part. Yeah, there are readers out there, but anytime you could come across a reader, someone who's just a reader out there, and they check out your work, hey, get in where you fit in as far as that goes. Now, on the other hand, I'm not throwing you under the bus, Ben. On the other hand, I will say that no one is entitled to your time, money, or attention. Okay? Whether that be in the short term or ongoing. Okay? Nobody is entitled to your attention. Okay? There's like this weird thing. It's a weird time to be alive. Not just for indie, but mainstream, just for art in general, art and media in general. It's a weird time to be alive. mostly because of the elephant in the room. And you already know where I'm going with this. Social media. That's right. Social media. It's with social media and the fans having kind of like a direct line of connection, or artists, I should say the other way around, like artists having a direct line of connection with their fans now. It's almost like there's this weird quasi like political type of shit that gets wrapped up in media now and in the art world. It's kind of cringe. It can be cringe quite a bit, because it's like, for some of these people, it's like, I honestly do. And on a daily, whenever I log into Twitter, of all of the social media, Twitter, you can definitely see that there are people out here that I feel like they're not so much in it for the work. You know, they're not in it for the art itself. They're kind of just in it for the politics that often now get wrapped up in it. Now that artists have a direct line of connection with their fans, they can kind of create their own platforms. Artists are developing their own platforms. Now, I don't have anything against artists building up their own platforms for their brand, whether it be for their brand name, their works, what have you. You know, do what you got to do for your hustle, as far as that goes, or just to get your name out there and make people aware of your art. But there's almost like also this weird politicking, like this weird, like almost like rabble rousing that gets involved in the art scene now, where it's like, I feel like people, it's like people are more interested. I'll put it this way. I wrote it down in the note because I think that this kind of hits the nail on the head. It's almost as if people are more interested in pledging their allegiance to a creator, to like a specific creator or artist. Can you imagine that? So strange. That's weird to me. You know, it takes it from a parasocial thing to like this whole nother galaxy of cringe, you know, where it's like these people are practically pledging their allegiance as if these artists were like politicians or something like that, bureaucrats, and they're running for office. You know, that's our guy. That's our guy. We got to back our guy no matter what. Fuck the work. Have you read the book? No. I've heard good things about it. I haven't read it. No, I haven't read it. But that's our guy. He stands for our politics. He's speaking our language. You know, which is fucking weird to me. That is weird behavior to me. Because this is supposed to be a creative space. This is supposed to be a place. The creative sphere is supposed to be a place for the arts and entertainments. It's a place for creators to come together, artists to come together and show off their works. Keyword, the works. You know, that is supposed to be, in my opinion, that is supposed to be the focal point of the conversations, of the discussions. But because of social media and all its little tendrils that it has, like where it kind of seeps into people's personal lives. Oh, did you hear what so-and-so did? Oh, did you hear what so-and-so said about so-and-so? Ooh. You know, the tea time, the drama. Sometimes it's just baked up, faked up, made up drama. It's not even real drama. You know, people latch onto that shit and they're more interested in the politics and the social dynamics surrounding the artists that are in the creative scene than focusing on the actual work that's being created. And for me, it's kind of a pet peeve. I hate that shit. I hate, you know, yes, the drama, you know, tea time, ha 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 ha, yes. Every now and then you can get sucked into it. It's like a guilty pleasure type thing. But at the same time, there's no culture if there isn't people actually talking about the works themselves, and that's what I would really, really like to start seeing again. And I feel like there are some people out here starting to put some feet to the fire, feet to the flames, if you will, and calling people out on that stuff, which I think more people should start getting called out on it. I'm not going to name any names right here, right now. But, I like to try to give people the benefit of the doubt that people are individuals and they're capable of changing their behavior. And I would like to see more people start focusing on the work more and less on the politics surrounding the artists themselves. That's how we got into this woke culture, cancel culture nonsense in the beginning. Started with the SJWs. The SJWs sticking their beaks in the affairs of creative people. It started with Gamergate. Gamergate, and that broad that stuck her beak in Gamergate, and she which was mostly a boys' space at that time. A lot of the guys, most gamers were men. In that space at that time, which I like to see. The gamer girls, women getting involved in video games. That's great. I'm not trying to gatekeep anybody. That's not what the indie scene is about. There's no gatekeepers here. But I feel like you really got to question your intentions. Are you buying a fucking product literally because that's your guy and he supports your politics? So ergo, you must automatically buy product just because? Can you not connect the dots and see how somebody could easily fucking play you for a fool and, play you like a fiddle and manipulate you? Pretend to be, oh, I'm about this. These are my principles. These are my principles. These are my values that I stand by. These are my values. This is what I'm about. Don't tread on me. And then you're like, oh, hell yeah. That's my guy. Yeehaw! We got to support. Let's buy his product. Buy. Just because he's talking your language, he represents your political party. Come on, guys. Anyone can fake the funk as far as that goes. It doesn't take a genius. But apparently, it also doesn't take but apparently it takes a genius to be able to look through the thin fucking veneer of the marketing tactics as far as that goes. Because then you ask some of these people, did you read the book? Did you read the book? Well, I don't know. I heard it was good. I don't know. He's our guy. Rah, rah, siskumba. There you go. What do you guys think? What do you think? Am I onto something? Do we need to stop, looking at artists and because I think it's cringe, dude. That's fucking. That's worse than Hollywood. Honestly, I think that's worse than Hollywood. Hollywood, I've told you, Hollywood is idolatry, is built on idolatry. The Hollywood producers are banking on the notion, literally, they're investing and banking on the notion that you worship these celebrities. They need you to worship these celebrities because a lot of their productions are multi-million-dollar investments. These productions in Hollywood are multi-million-dollar investments. So they need you to worship the ground that these celebrities walk on. Their bottom line depends on that. Okay, they depend on the fact that you're going to go see a movie. Not to say that the artists, the actors, or themselves are not talented. I'm not saying that, but there's an air of idolatry, or idolatry, I should say. There's idolatry in Hollywood that they bank on. So I'd hate to start seeing that shit start seeping into the underground scene. Start seeping down into the underground scene where, sure, there's going to be the cream that rises to the top. I have another hot topic where I talk about merit versus marketing, or maybe we could get into this a little bit further. But I feel like just for now, to kind of end this one off, maybe take some time. You don't have to necessarily comment on this one. You can if you want. You can weigh in if you want. But maybe just kind of take this one as kind of a time to kind of sit some time aside and just reflect on a personal level and say, look at the last, here's a little exercise for you. Maybe look at like the last 3 to 4 or 5 indie projects that you supported, or books that you decided to reach into your wallet for. They weren't gifts. I'm not talking about gifts. I mean purchases. Things that you of your own free will decided to reach into your wallet and show your support for, and you decided to buy a product on your own free will from the independent market. Now look at the last 3 to 4, maybe 5 projects that you did that for, and ask yourself, why did you make that purchase? Why? And that's a rhetorical question. Now you don't have to leave that in the comments. It's a personal thing. I want you to reflect. Why did you make that purchase? Were you just supporting a friend? Did you want to support your guy? That's our guy. He needs our vote. We need to vote with our dollars. As if they are a politician and they're running for office, even though that has nothing to do with office, and it has nothing to do with has nothing to do with legislation or anything like that, as if you're voting for a politician that's going to enact bills and policies that are literally going to affect your personal life. That's how some of these consumers are talking about, whether it be indie creators or mainstream creators. That's our guy. We need to buy our guy, as if that's helping them win a culture war. That I'm now in the point where it's like, is there really a war? Or is it just this faked up, caked up, made up kind of LARPing going on at the end of the day, where it's like, guys, what exactly are you fighting for specifically? And how are you going to accomplish that by purchasing a product? Okay. All things that maybe we could reflect upon as consumers of, whether it be indie works or mainstream works. But I really want to focus on indie scene here, because there are people who are kind of playing that same kind of card out here. It's a little bit cringe, I have to say, because I'm somebody who is capable of separating the art from the artist, and I'm going to look at your work. Fuck what you say. Fuck what comes out of your mouth. I don't give a shit about that. I don't even care if you're a bad person. I honestly don't. He's problematic. That doesn't bother me. Be as problematic as he wants. Name my personal life. I don't know you. I don't know you people personally. I'm here for the app. I'm here for the entertainment. Wow me. Wow me with your works. Wow me with your artwork. Give me something to talk about at the end of the day. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. We'll check in one more time. So Rachel kind of weighs in here. This is an angle. It's fun. One full Southern drawl, yeah. Oh, there you go, Ben. Ben's an awesome guy, an absolute sweetheart of a human. Someone's seen some of your content. So Rachel kind of weighs in here, and this is an angle that is, I'm not making a value judgment, because maybe you do purchase something to literally just support an individual. And that individual just so happens to be a personal friend of yours. Hey, no value judgment here. What can I say to that? What can I say to that? You know what I mean? You purchased a book because your friend set out on a goal to see something all the way through to the end. They made it happen, and you want to support their dreams. Hey, all I have to say to that, hey, you're a good friend as far as that goes. That's all I have to say about that. And there's really nothing else to say about that. You know, what else can be said? No third option. Now, this is something where you and I might differ a little bit, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree as well. You say, Rachel says, I don't want modern identity politics in my fiction. Fair enough. Fair enough. That's a preference. That is a preference. Me, on the other hand, I don't mind it. In the work. Keyword, in the work. You want to make your book as political as possible? Hey, do all the politics that you want. Go right ahead. No skin off my back. But all you're going to be doing is all you're going to do is you'll probably turn a lot of people off, because I know it's not a common thing for people to pick up a book because of they want the politics that are in the book. Usually that turns people off if there's politics in the work itself. Politics being spout by the artist, thumbs up. Politics in the work, they're like, nah. All of a sudden the tune changes and they're like, nah, I just want it for escapism. Come on, guys. Can we just have good work? I just want the work for the escapism, you guys. I got to escape the day-to-day. I want to get away from the politics. Meanwhile, buying the work literally because the artist is talking about politics. You know, that's where I'm like, I'm just bringing it into the forefront, saying, you know, I'm seeing a disconnect here. There's somewhere along the line, there's a disconnect that ain't adding up for me. You see what I'm saying? What is it? It's one or the other. Are you in this because you genuinely want to support the work? Or are you in this for political reasons, for agendas? You know, we got to win the culture war, you guys. The culture war, you know? Let's think about it. You know, I'm okay with you putting your politics. You want to put your politics, your personal politics, you want to put it in your book? Hey, go right ahead. I may not resonate with it. And if I happen to write an editorial on it, I may shit all over it and tell you all about how your politics are flawed. That could be a fun time, I have to say. But that's not the reason. But politics in general is not the reason why I'm in here, why I'm involved in the underground scene, why I'm involved in the indie scene. It's not why I'm here. I'm here to appreciate the arts and entertainments, first and foremost. All right. I think I went off a little bit more on a diatribe on that one, but we're going to leave it at that. I want to wrap things up now. Let me wrap things up. Before I do, let me put on a little music. This one, we're just going to go with the 90s alternative theme here. That's what this song kind of reminds me of. 90s alternative type of theme to it, with the synthesizers and whatnot, and the heavy drum beats, the slapping drum beats. Well, thanks for that, Ben. Thanks for reaching out, dropping a comment, weighing in on that. Appreciate your perspective. For those of you watching on the replay, you want to comment about anything that transpired during the show. I try to bring a variety to you guys each and every single week. I'm here. And, you know, we can get together. It can be hot. It can be heavy. It can be cold. It can be fun. I try to make it fun first and foremost. So I hope y'all had some fun. I hope y'all discovered something new, because that's what this is also about, is raising awareness and a form of discovery for you, for what's going on in the underground. So I will be back here. There's no need to fret, because I will be back here next week. Same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, at 6 p.m. Pacific. Take it easy, Rachel. Thanks for hanging out. And thanks for coming on, sharing your time with me. It was a pleasure, I have to say. And I hope you all watching at home on the replay have a good week.
This offended my sensibilities.